You're listening to the Ones Ready podcast, a team of Air Force Special Operators forged in combat with over 70 years of combined operational experience, as well as a decade of selection instructor experience. If you're tired of settling and you want to do something you truly believe in, you're in the right place. Now here's your host, PJ Team Leader, former INDOC instructor supervisor, entrepreneur, and physician assistant student, Brian Silva.
What's up, everybody? Brian Silva here for the Ones Ready podcast. I hope you guys are ready to get into some stuff, because today we're going to be talking about going through tough times and the tools that we individually use when we are going through INDOC, and then in the future when we're out there doing the stuff overseas, just the things that we reach back on and thought about and learned from INDOC. So hope you guys are ready to talk about what we do in stressful situations. So first off, we want to thank you guys for listening to the podcast, and we're just starting out and everything, but we appreciate all the help that you guys are paying attention to us on Instagram and watching the YouTube videos. We really appreciate all the comments and the discussion that we're having with you guys that are watching that. So please continue to comment and then rate our podcast on whatever iTunes, Spotify, whatever you listen to the podcast on. And then keep in mind that you can always get a discount from Alpha Brew Coffee Company. Awesome stuff, nootropic coffee, and then also with the Strike Force Energy right here. You just comes in little packets. You can pour it into whatever kind of drink that you like to sip on. So we're going to get into this podcast here. Like I said, we're talking about tough times when we were going through selection and INDOC and kind of the things that got us through those difficult times. And we want to make sure that whenever you guys are training and you're going through these things and you're practicing like your underwaters, you're practicing your runs, you're practicing all the rucks and stuff, it's going to get tough, and you should put yourself through things that are a little bit tough before you show up, and make sure that you're obviously training safe and everything. But we really want you guys to kind of have an idea of things that you can reach back and think about whenever you are, going to sit on the side of that pool, or the first day you show up to the pass test and the pressure's on, and you're like, what am I going to do to perform? How am I going to get through this thing? So we're going to kind of share all of our experiences and just some of the things that we've went through and how it helped us. So let's go ahead and get into, I'm going to go with Trent first. Just, he has a lot of experience, with the SAUT and then now the SR stuff, and then also instructor experience. So if you don't mind just sharing, an experience that you went through, kind of extreme pressure and what you did to overcome it. I know you have a lot going on and you're constantly doing that, but just tell us a little bit.
Well, I think the one that everyone wants to hear about, right, as like first deployment, first time getting shot at, and how to get past that, and what had I gone through in the past that and the training that allowed me to overcome that, and the tools I used. And so I'll tell you that the first time that I found myself in that situation, some dude is shooting at us and trying to kill us, is what the training did for me is it allowed me to focus on what I needed to focus on. And what I actually did was I heard multiple people's voices in my head telling me to breathe and telling me what to do, and walking myself through that process and everything that they told me, right? So like the training that helps you focus on one thing and kind of get rid of all the excess noise that you don't need to be focusing on. And then all the other training that tells me, okay, once you've cleared that target, you need to breathe, open your eyes, and keep your head on a swivel. And then after that, once you kind of get past that initial thing, is when you feel that that pressure that rises in your chest, like that natural, that everybody's going to feel on the way to the pool during the pipeline, like that panic start to build. How to deal with that, how to get rid of it, and how to move on to your next objective is those are the things that really helped me get past that first super intense situation that I had in the real world.
Yeah, so mostly, that heart rate goes up, you start sweating, you're just like, holy crap, you feel kind of like the walls are coming in on you because you see the instructors come in or whatever, like when you're at the pool and you're just like, holy crap, are you going to freeze? It's that fight or flight thing. And yeah, like you're talking about getting over that little initial push, and you're like, all right, keep on going, don't stop myself, like keep on rolling, and then get through it and focus on the things that you need to do. All right, cool. Let's go with Aaron. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of situations that you've been in and what goes through your head whenever you're in those kind of situations?
Yeah, I'm glad you called on me, buddy, because I got to be honest, I'm a scary individual. Like when stuff starts getting heinous, like I'm the first guy to be like, oh no, what are we going to do? No, so it's just one of those things. It's stress inoculation, right? Like if you expose yourself to it over and over again, even in small little stuff, And I'm sure you guys have seen it. You'll have a friend that might not be part of the community, and they started describing a stressful situation, and you're just like, where's the stress? What are you talking about? Like, this seems like a pretty easy job, man. Like, you go from, the first 5-meter target you can find, you knock that down, and you go on to the next one. Well, we kind of take that for granted because that's what the pipeline is meant to do, right? It's meant to expose you to that stress over and over again. I was joking with my friends this week that we had a really, really boring free fall jump. So we got together, we briefed, we went out, we just jumped our plan, we got to the ground, and we kind of buttoned stuff up, and I went back to writing EPRs because it's that season, right? Not performance reports, right?
Yeah.
But to anybody else, that's the event of a lifetime. Going skydiving on a Wednesday, that's their bucket list item. And to me, honestly, like, I could have used the extra couple hours to write those EPRs, man. I don't have that much time in my day. Like, I could have gone without the jump, right? But it's just exposing yourself to it over and over and over again. It's putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions where you're used to dealing with that stress, and it just becomes another part of you. Like, okay, got it. Like, some things are going to be layered on top. Like, training isn't necessarily the most stressful thing that you're going to be involved in. I think combat is probably going to be the most stressful thing that you're involved in. But how do you get those combat reps without presenting yourself to real physical danger every single day? Well, you get as close as you possibly can, and you start getting used to increased and more doses of stress. That's what we do with nutrition and fitness and everything else, right? We get ourselves close to our goal. We see how long we can stay there. Maybe it's only 5 reps at 225 today, but maybe next week you can get 6 reps at 225. You keep adding that stress to your life, and it becomes easier to deal with it, and you kind of open those blinders up a little bit. Everybody remembers their first free fall jump at school. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was like, man, you pack this chute. I know who I am as a person. Please don't die. When this thing opens, I hope that it goes the right way. But now, you go from that very first experience that the only thing I was thinking about was pull on altitude, stare at my altimeter and pull at the right time. Well, now, just this week I had a free fall jump that was run of the mill. It was just kind of like another part of my day. Like, it's funny to see yourself. You just have to trust in the process that you're going to get that far. Continue to expose yourself to stress. Continue to expose yourself to those new environments. And pretty soon, the performance piece of it's all on you, but it's always been all on you. It's just the perspective changes a little bit at the end.
Yeah, I think, I finished reading Goggins' book a while back, and he talks about building a mental callus, just like building the blisters that you have on your hands from weightlifting kind of thing. It's just exposure after exposure. The first time, you might rip a little skin off, get a little blood on there, and then, after a while, you keep on doing the same thing over and over again. You have calluses on your hand, and that way you can, withstand whatever amount of weights on the bar. And it's a never-ending process to make sure you build that mental callus, because, again, they heal, and if you haven't been in that tough situation for a long time, then it kind of goes away a little bit. You still have a little bit of residual kind of always because you've been exposed to it so much, but you always got to have that re-exposure and then re-attack it. So, yeah.
It's always there. It's always there. You always got one more good one, and you're like, hey, listen, I know this one's going to suck, and I know maybe I haven't been there, but I can go do this. But I got to be honest, it's easier if you just work on it. It's easier if you don't have to bring it up from the past,
Yep, exactly. And then real quick on the free fall thing, I think we've all been in that same spot. And I think my video, like when I first did my first jump, it made it on the class video or whatever because I was scared.
It sucked.
Yeah, exactly. Made it on the class video.
The worst. Not on the class video.
Yeah, I know. And the dude, he made me poise out backwards because I was super nervous. Like, I had never even thought about jumping out of a plane before. Like, I joined the military, and then, I jumped out, and I was like, there's a little bit of kicks. I was like, oh no, the ground's out from underneath me, kind of thing. And I was just like, oh crap. A couple flips, and then I went to this, just stared. Yeah.
Yeah,
So anyways,
that first jump went really, really fast. Really fast. Yeah. In fact, probably the first couple. But now, if I go out for a 10 grand, I'm just sitting here like, holy shit, man.
What am I going to do with this extra
I got all kinds of time.
Right, yeah.
You can listen to our podcast again in the free fall.
Hey, man, leave that review in case you don't want to, if you're able to text during the flight.
Exactly. All right. So, We got a pretty good perspective there. Let's go to Peach next. If you want to share one of your experiences and what you do to just kind of overcome that little hump and that hard time.
Well, I got quite a few, but since we're already in the jumping vein, I'll continue this one, and especially because I kind of brought it up when we did the live event. Water jump. On a lot of the water jumps, the minimum that we can jump is 3,000 feet. I realize you guys know that, but for the listeners, they don't know that. So 3,000 feet above the water, right? We jumped out, and I was the jump master, so I pretty much threw everybody out, and then I followed. Well, as we jump out and I pull my ripcord, my main parachute wraps around my legs, right? So I have a malfunction out of my main, right? So immediately I realize what's going on. So then I do my cutaway procedures, which is ingrained in all of us, right? We do it second nature. We don't even think about it. Do that. And then the reserve then wraps around that chute and gets tangled up. So I have what they essentially call a horseshoe malfunction, or you can kind of call it a dual canopy malfunction as well.
I feel like I have to break in here. Like, you're describing an event that you should have died on, and you're doing it like sort of like nonchalantly. All right, so you've only got 2 parachutes, everybody. If the first one doesn't work, you go to the second one. When you irreparably and hopelessly foul the second one on the first one through no fault of your own, that's on the good-bad scale. So like good and then bad. That one's like bad. Like that's like
pegged.
The worst. Yeah, that pegged at the worst.
Especially.
So way to gloss over this one.
Especially with only 3,000 feet. I don't know when that's going to play into this, but I don't know.
I got to be honest with you. That's not enough altitude.
Yeah.
That's 3,000 is not enough for anything. Dollars in your bank account, 3,000. Better be a grown up. That's really not that much money. 3,000 feet below you until you die. Probably also not great.
Yeah, there wasn't much. There wasn't much time.
Okay, continue to gloss over this terribly emotional event.
Well, I think that's where it's coming from, though. Stress inoculation, right? You know.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
gotcha.
there I am with a horseshoe tumbling head first, and
About to die.
And every time, I jump with a knife, right? So I bring out my knife, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna cut the mane to where it's hooked around my legs, but so there's about a quarter of a parachute, quarter of my main, and a quarter of my reserve that are spinning like this, like almost like the egg beater, right? Spinning, and every time, and I'm heads down, right? So every time I do a sit up to try and cut, they smash into each other and collapse even more. So I go faster. So I eventually get to the point like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to cut these. So, and the water's getting really close. And I was like, well, I don't want to stab myself. So I chuck the knife, and I'm like, all right, well, here we go. Hopefully we make this.
By the way, for everybody that's keeping track, the knife that he threw hit a terrorist. So it hit somebody from ISIS. So it wasn't a complete waste. And he got the knife back, so that's good.
Yeah. I went and took it out of his chest.
That's a different story, yeah. Different story.
That's a whole different one. We're not talking about
No, that wasn't stressful, so. But yeah. So yeah, I smack into the water head first. And I don't remember whether I blacked out or not. I don't think I did. But next thing I remember, and you guys know him, Culpepper's on a boat, right? And he's on the bow of the boat, and he's jumping into the boat, or from the boat into the water. And he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I think so, man. Like, I guess. How about you get me out of this chute?" So, yeah. I don't necessarily know that I'm showing stress inoculation, other than the fact that, look, I didn't panic during it, right? So it's extreme situation, but because of being stress inoculated, whether it's in the pipeline or whether it's through years and years of jumping, through shooting and being in other stressful situations, though that situation was not, surprisingly, not terribly crazy for me. Now, where I hit problems, though, was that because it was a water jump, like, okay, so if we're doing a land jump, you guys know this, and you have a cutaway or you have a malfunction or something like that, and you have another chute and a plane that can take you right back up so that you can jump out again, you get right back on that horse. So that is preferred, because if not, you kind of get that mental block and you're worried about it and like, oh no, as soon as I pull my ripcord, the chute's going to do the same thing, right? My problem is it was a water jump, and I didn't have another jump for probably a month or two after that. So those like those next
fear building up.
Oh yeah, so
that's the worst.
So I would never hesitate whenever I'd come out, but those first probably 10 jumps, when it would come to pulling, I'm like, all right, here we go. Very, very methodical, very deliberate, but again, I couldn't get right back on the horse. So Brian, that would be my stress inoculation story that I would choose simply because we were talking about jumping.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to remember for guys that are going to be going through selection, or if you are selection right now and you're listening to this, we had guys that would, if we did buddy breathing, we would just destroy their world and stuff, and they'd be choking, and then they'd have nightmares about it. They'd tell me about it. They're like, I really don't want to go in there and do buddy breathing again. I'm terrified to go in there and choke on water again. So it's kind of the same concept, but buddy breathing, you're not actually going to die doing that. We have people and safe for the most part. So you're not going to, it's not in that extreme of a situation, but it's the same kind of thing. And the same concept is if you're kind of thinking about it every single night when you go to bed and you're just scared of screwing it up again, then it's just going to haunt you, and it's going to be in the back of your mind when you're doing anything else. And it's just going to, ruin the progress that you've made on your runs or anything else. Cause you're like, man, okay, I might be able to run 630 miles or whatever, but I cannot do this buddy breathing thing. So a lot of guys that I've seen, as an instructor just kind of end up failing out because they can't do that one thing that's stuck in the back of the head. And most of the time it was buddy breathing. So
that does seem to be the big one, buddy breathing. People freak out about it.
Yeah. And the one thing I want to stay away from too is just because we're telling stories like, for the listeners out there, like, don't put yourself into some weird thing where like, oh my God, like Jared almost died on this free fall jump. His stress is more than my stress. And like, it's not the same. Man, yeah. I've been terrified just to get out of bed in the morning at Indoc. Like at 4:30 in the morning, just be like, do I want to go do this again today? Like that stress in that moment, that might be as much stress. Like you have a cup, right? Like our cups are way bigger now for the stress that we can take, but it's because we've been doing the stress inoculation for years, and some of us decades, and for Jared 45 years. So we all have different amounts that we can take, right? Like we're going to give you a smaller cup to start. So don't look at buddy breathing and just be like, oh, I shouldn't feel like that because Jared almost died on a free fall jump over water. Or all these guys got in firefights stuff. I got to be honest with you, man. At that moment, that was as much stress as I could take. At this moment, getting off that ramp for the first time at free fall school, or just going back to that buddy breathing session, that might be as much stress as you can take, and you're making good gains by going back and getting in that fight. So
absolutely. And what we do as instructors, when I was an instructor, we would make it, that stressful thing in a safe situation where we can kind of analyze the things that they're doing and make sure that they're acting the way that, a person that is going to be out in the battlefield, and then be in situations like, Peach and you guys were talking about, to actually do the right thing and make sure that you grab your knife and you do your thing and you do the right procedures. You remember your cutaway sequence, and you're not just like panic mode. That's it. I'm just going to die. And then let yourself, fall to the wayside, because, in those kind of situations, I'm sure we've all been in a situation where we had to save our own life, and we had to have our wits about us enough in that stressful situation to get ourselves out of that situation. So that's kind of the whole purpose and what we're looking for as far as, instructors. And that's kind of my thing. I'll share my stuff for a later date, but just from the instructor standpoint, that's what guys are really looking for, and what is going to get you selected ultimately. Keeping a cool head and staying calm in those really difficult situations where it's difficult to do that. It's difficult to be like, all right, take a deep breath, just like Trent was saying, get over that hump, and then start thinking about what you need to do to get yourself out of that rut, and then keep moving forward, because it's going to happen at some point in your career. You just got to figure out how to do it. So we went over a couple different things and situations you guys have been in. I want to talk about like why you guys think it's important for these guys, because I kind of tied mine in right there. why you think it's important for these guys to be placed in these stressful situations. So we'll start in reverse order this time, just because Peach had the floor again. We'll go back to Peach, and then we'll go back up and cycle through to you guys, the rest of you guys that are sitting there.
Whoever you guys
let's
are.
go to Peach, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't have anything, very concrete and specific, but I think, Aaron touched on it a little bit, but everyday life happens, and you guys have heard me say that, and I know some of the people listening have heard me say that. Life happens, right? Whether you're in this kind of career field or not, you could be in a car accident, or you could come up on a car accident and have to pull somebody out of a car, and you get that adrenaline going. And that adrenaline is great because you can do some amazing things on adrenaline. But at the same time, that is also stress, and it goes with that fight or flight thing, right? Some people, it's just they're going to shut down and they can't handle the stress. Whereas if your natural instinct is to fight, right? That is still a whole bunch of stress on you, but maybe you're still able to perform to a certain point. And I think that is one of the key reasons why we do it, is just so that we don't want people to shut down, because if our lives or our buddies' lives depend on it, or the mission needs to press on, we can't afford to just shut down. Like, once you've already gone and crossed enemy lines, you're there. You're essentially surviving until you get back. So there is no shutting down. You just got to keep going. For me, that's what I would say. But what do I know?
Don't try and play it down. That was awesome. You're got really into it, and then you're like, nah, just kidding. But no,
you hit that great soundbite. I'm going to be able to delete that later part, and we're just going to be able to keep the first part. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Thanks, technology. What a time to be alive. You know what I'm saying?
But we're not really going to do that. All right. No, I totally appreciate what you're talking about. Like, the mission starts when it starts. Once you get on that bird and you're taking off, the dude salutes you. You're like, boom, all right, here you go. We're not coming back until you're back. And even then, you still got to reconstitute, get ready for the next one. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, totally agree. All right, so let's go to Trent, because I know you're sitting there and you're giving me that impatient look, so go ahead.
It's just my look. That's just the way I look.
Or it's that stash. I don't know.
It's the mustache. It's
I got to be honest with you. That stash is something fantastic.
It's the Geo Bachelor mustache.
Ned Flanders.
I would say the most important part about stress inoculation is learning how to move towards stress and to not ignore it. When you're having those nightmares or you're thinking about it all the time, there's a difference between thinking about it and running through those checklist items and figuring out how you're going to get past it and embracing it, versus avoiding it and trying to push it down into your soul, and then it just festers and it becomes this toxic thing. Whereas as you go through it over and over and over again, you learn how to deal with it, and then you learn how to move towards it and what you need to do to get past it. Like, all of our stories are, hey, I just ran through the checklist, right? I ran through the checklist. I kept repeating it to myself. I know what I'm going to do. I know what to do in this situation. I visualized it. And instead of avoiding it, instead of being you might wake up in the morning and be like, I really don't want to do this. But then you get past it and you just keep going and you figure out what you need to do. And the stress it just is what it is. And you get used to living with it. So to me, that's the difference, is once you've been inoculated to a certain extent, you just start moving towards it and getting better and better at handling the stress and figuring out what you need to do to get past it to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you start actually implementing those tools that you figure out help you get through that thing, then you can pretty much reach any goal. And I think that was one of the main things that I kind of learned from Indoc, was after I finished that Hell Night, I was just like, holy crap, I actually did this. Like, I was able to get through those difficult pool sessions, even though I was super tired, super sore and everything. I limped to that chow hall with my chest out. I was all proud of myself, and I was like, yes, I finally, I did it. And then, you keep on going after whatever goals come up in the future, and you kind of reach back and use those things that you did in the past in order to make yourself progress into the whatever goals you have right now. So
isn't it funny that, and you bring it up, Brian, is that after you've already passed it, you look back and you're like, well, actually that kind of wasn't too bad.
Wasn't that bad? Yeah.
I handled that.
Yeah.
Man, I did great.
You're like, oh yeah, brother.
What was that? I'll tell you what, I think that is, I think we uncovered the number one reason why people think AF spec war dudes like beret wearing guys are just a little bit more cocky. I'm sorry, I almost died right before I came to lunch, man. Like, how do you expect me to feel in this chow hall, right? Like, of course I'm gonna get extra dessert, dog. I almost got drowned for a living. Get out of here.
Yep. Yes, I'm having a beer tonight. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm enjoying my life because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I didn't die today one time, and I might have, should have, but I didn't. So we're just going to keep going.
All about perspective.
It's all about perspective, baby. That's it.
All right. So let's just go to Aaron then, since you're kind of up right now anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that constant exposure to stress, and Trent hit it great, man. Like, he's just like, man, what's next on the checklist? I think that's the difference between people that are really, inoculated to stress and people that kind of just pretend, is like, what to do next. Like, that's the difference in a stressful situation that you see is, there, you can call it being a sheepdog and running towards battle. You can call it, being, burn the boats, whatever things that we want to, through our tribalism, we want to kind of espouse, and we want to say this is what it looks like. But it's you want to be the person that knows what to do next. You can't possibly be the person that knows what to do next if you're so worried about this moment right now. How stressed am I in this moment? I'm trying to get through each second. When you see that true combat leader in any situation, that person knows what to do next. We just had a truck go down. We just had a plane go down. We just had one of our team members land off target. What are we going to do? You look to that leader, that person knows what to do next. And I think those people are just really good at stress inoculation and being in that moment, being like, okay, well, this happened, but what comes next? I think those people are always the people that we look to, like, those dudes are switched on. Those guys know what to do. And assessment and selection is no thing. You can do this at every single level, right? Like, I always look towards my team sergeant. I always look to those guys that were older than me in the career field. When something crazy would happen, I would look to them and I'd be like, oh, what are they going to do? And when I saw how they reacted, especially calm breeds calm. Like, I'm a cliche guy. Calm breeds calm. Okay, hey, I know this situation is terrible, but what are we going to do next? Let's start coming up with a plan. I think stress inoculation is really where that starts. And I think that's one of those things, the big question about leadership is, is it taught or is it one of those things that you're just born with? I think it's a little bit of both. And I think stress inoculation is where you can really train somebody to be a good leader because they're always thinking about, okay, well, what's next, right? And that stress inoculation, that starts with indoc, and even before that, assessment selection. But even before that, you start to learn, I feel like this when I'm stressed. I always, and, good on Trent for bringing it up, but I always resort to checklist. What's the emergency for this? What's my algorithm? Brian, I know you know this, but I do it with patient care. Are they bleeding? Are they bleeding anywhere? Can I stop them from bleeding? Can I get them breathing? And then can I make that patient leaving? That's really a pretty simple thing. But if you stick to that, you're good. And you just really rely on those stress inoculations of the previous. I always love the quote from Fight Club where he talks about the volume getting turned down after fighting, right? Like, you go through a couple of nasty pool sessions, you go through a couple bad free fall jumps, you go through some bad firefights. I got to be honest with you. Standing in line at the Safeway really isn't that big of a deal. And all that is stress inoculation, right? Like, somebody cuts you off on the road, you'd be like, that's okay, guy. A helicopter did the same thing to me the other night in complete NVG considerations, and turns out it was fine. So I guess I'm not mad about that at all, So, but I think that's all stress inoculation. That's where we start.
Yeah, I think the important thing that you were talking about there was the stress inoculation breeds leadership. And that's really a thing that starts, honestly, from childhood. When you were talking about that, I was thinking about, like, being a parent and kind of like, those guys that are like, oh my gosh, you cut your leg, let me bandage it and do all that stuff. It's the kind of the same thing when you're a team member versus, you're looking at your team leader. You're like, oh my gosh, there's a car crash right there. It just happened in front of us. Is he going to freak out, or what is he going to do? And then the team leader, because he has that stress inoculation, is kind of like, all right, is there any other dangers, crash? Team members, you're like, oh crap, let's grab our tools and go. Just staring at this one problem that's in front of you. So anyway, the stress inoculation, like you said, breeding leadership, I think that's a really important aspect. And, that's kind of what we're expected to do whenever we go on a teams because, as PJs, we have the team leadership role. And then as JTACs and SR, you're kind of out on your own, for the most part, doing your thing and running your show. And you're kind of talking to guys and your specialty to direct guys and make sure that they know what's on the battlefield, and you have to be kind of a self-starter and have that awareness to just kind of be stress inoculated and not be heads down, because the team's going to be counting on you to do your specific task whenever stuff happens. So
yeah, got to be ready to perform.
That's it.
Exactly. So let's move into just the last thing. I just want to hear you guys' things. We talked about it a little bit, but with stress inoculations, you're building those calluses and everything. Is there a point that you think that anybody's going to be like fully stress inoculated and you're just like, well, I think I'm, for the most part, good. I don't have to hit this anymore, and I could just coast on whatever thing I'm doing right now? Kind of a loaded question a little bit, but Peach, let's go ahead and hit you up first.
Okay, so you mean I can't rest on my laurels? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are laurels?
Laurels.
So no, it doesn't end, which I think is really important. So not to make this hey, education doesn't end, right? But even now, whenever I do a JTAC evaluation on a guy, even if he has been a JTAC for a long time, I will still put him under a significant amount of stress, whether that is, with a whole stack of aircraft, or I cause a multi-axis troops in contact situation, or I take away some of his equipment, because whenever we're creating or developing training events, right, it does me and it does the men or women no good for me to just give them a kind of okay-ish scenario to where, hey, they win at the end. No, what I want to do is I want to create a scenario that causes so much stress, so much chaos that they almost fail or fail.
They think they could.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that's a decisive part of any battle space, man.
Oh yeah.
This might not go my way.
Oh yeah. Hey, the enemy's got a vote, and life environment has a vote, right? So when I do it, I plan scenarios or situations that they are going to fail or they are going to come close to failing. It does them no good. I'm not doing them any favors if I just give them some pansy-ass scenario.
Absolutely, because that's what you're preparing them for battle. So, I mean, stuff's going to happen whenever you actually go down range and radios go out or whatever. That's number one thing.
Yep.
So, okay, let's go with Trent.
To me, this is like the can you ever be too smart question? Are you ever too educated?
Yeah.
I told you it was a loaded question, yeah.
Yeah, stress inoculation is just increasing your bandwidth of your problem-solving ability or whatever within a certain spectrum of stress. So why do you think that is ever large enough to cover down on every situation that you could ever be in? It might be for every situation you're going to be in, but you've never made it. You're never there. You're never 100% inoculated to everything. You're never, you've never made it. I don't know how to explain it. Like, there's always more to learn, more bandwidth to gain, and more you can do to improve yourself to be a better version of you.
It's never enough.
Situations.
It's never enough.
Absolutely.
That's the stress, is that it's never enough.
Everyone's got that 24 hours in a day, and I thought I was really busy when I was 17, and I was working a part-time job and going to school, and I was like, man, I'm so busy all the time, and I have to work out, and I have to go watch this movie with my friends, and now, with all this other stuff that's kind of added on with doing this kind of thing, kids, other school, working out, there's just so much that you kind of learn. And like you said, Trent, your bandwidth for, your capacity for actual performance kind of increases as you go on. And I think it's the same with physical, mental, all that stuff. Your bandwidth increases as you kind of experience life, and you have to work around that kind of stuff. All right, let's hit up Aaron. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think you can totally be stress inoculated. I think you can totally win this game as long as you're okay with mediocrity. As long as you're okay with staying where you are and never being better, yeah. I mean, you can get ready for the stresses that you encounter every day, but, man, it's just like warfare, right? Like, if you're training for this war, if you're not trying to fight the war that's going to happen in 10 years, guess what's going to happen when that war pops up? You ain't going to be ready for it, right? So, man, I don't feel like I'm ever fully stress inoculated, because if I am, I'm not pushing myself hard enough. I'm not finding those new challenges. I'm not finding those new situations that I need to go, be the best PJ that I can be and the best senior NCO that I can be. Like, if you're not if you're not being stressed, you're not putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, and that's not what we do. So, yeah, I think you can there's totally times, for me, it's a funny thing, but if I ever feel like I'm like, man, I'm crushing this, the number one thing that I immediately hear is like, holy crap, ding, you are crushing this, and I got to be honest with you, it's because you're probably not trying hard enough. So, yeah, that's one man's optic on it.
Or complacent, which is also extremely dangerous.
Got to get out of here, man. I'll tell you what, complacency, and what's the other one that kills you twice? So complacency and denial kill you twice because you thought you were fine and then you weren't, and then denial kills you because you couldn't believe it, and complacency kills you because you're already dead, right? So there you go.
All right, that is a perfect lead-in. So, I'm gonna go with kind of my overview of what we talked about and that kind of thing, but exactly like you said, we have the option of, going to Starbucks in the morning and sitting at an office and doing our little computer work, going home and being comfortable on our little couch, sipping our whatever, hot cocoa or tea or something before we go to bed, in our Tempur-Pedic beds and our whatever. Like, we have the option of just...
What are you drinking at home, man? Like,
where are you living your life right now?
I'm just saying.
Brian lives a charm. I got to get into PA school, apparently.
Oh, man, take it easy there.
Starbucks trip in the morning. I got a Tempur-Pedic waiting for me at night, man.
I got some chamomile at the end of the night.
Whoa. Like, you're the one that's over here with the ghost bed or whatever you're talking about.
Oh, I was just bringing it off of Drinking Bros.
No, I don't actually drink tea, but I do drink coffee, but not Starbucks. I make my own stuff. Anyway, Alpha Brew Coffee Company.
Is it Alpha Brew?
Alpha Brew Coffee, what's up?
Yeah. All right. So... But anyways, you have the option of doing that. I talked to a lot of people because I am in, medical school right now, and that's kind of what they do. They don't put themselves in difficult situation. I invite them to work out, and they're like, nah, I don't really, no thanks. I don't really want to go work out because, I have all these things to do over lunch. It's like all that stuff's going to be there whenever you're done with your workout. Go put yourself in difficult situations and push yourself. Go around people that are going to be better than you to make yourself better and learn from them. Compete and make yourself, like you said, calloused, talking about all the things that you've experienced, building that up, go through a difficult time. If you're doing like a AMRAP or whatever, you have the option to sit back and not do as much as some of the other guys. That's your choice. But if you put yourself out there and actually try your hardest to do the best on the team or whatever, then that's going to increase your callousness and make you be able to push forward and work harder next time. So keep that in mind whenever you go and do your next workout, or if you're too tired to get out of bed and do the workout in the morning because it's 5:00 and you just had a long night the night before or whatever. Those difficult experiences are going to help you, form the person that you're going to be in the future. And like I said, it's a process that takes a long time to build. So make sure that every single day you're going out there and you're making something of your life, putting yourself in those difficult situations. Socrates once said that no man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the strength of which his body is capable. So don't let the talents and the things that have been given to you, because you have the opportunity. Like I said, you live in America. There's a gym right next to you. There's a pool. There's somewhere for you to go and train and be better. So utilize those opportunities and go out there and earn each breath. We appreciate you guys listening to the podcast today. If you guys have any comments down in the YouTube, go ahead and drop it in the comments. You can always get in touch with us over at the Instagram. Shoot us a message and we'll make sure that we get back to you guys as soon as possible. You can always go to onesready.com and check out the website, check out some of our Spotify playlists, and these sweet shirts that just came in are also available down at the website.
I was going to ask you about that shirt.
Yeah. Don't worry.
So.
Yeah.
Hey, man, what is that, a medium? You're filling that thing out nicely, my friend.
It's real clean. This medium, yeah.
That's got to be like an XL on you. Look at you.
But it is a tri-blend, so it's super stretchy, super soft and comfortable. All right, you guys know it's an awesome shirt. So go over there to onesready.com, check it out, and then if you guys have any comments or anything, make sure you leave them down there. Subscribe, like us on iTunes, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Yeah.